The mind can ramble off in strange ways.
You're in for a real treat.
Introducing Punchlines Podcast.
Your next comic has been on the Jay Leno Show, David Letterman. Please welcome the very funny Mitch Fatel.
Punchlines Podcast.
Oh, that guy's fucking hilarious.
Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve.
Today we have Brandon Girtz, close friend of mine, very competitive friend of mine. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, brother.
I just want to start out saying that you're the first guy that we've done at your house.
At the house.
So it's pretty interesting. And I think the interesting thing about this podcast is people like to learn interesting facts about the fighters that maybe they wouldn't know. And Brandon Girtz has a bidet. So
only way to go, dude.
Yeah.
After I got that, I can't even go in public no more.
When you see Brandon fighting, just know he has a very clean asshole.
Dude, once you go bidet, you won't go back. I'm telling you.
Have you ever used a bidet?
No.
Dude, you got to go in there and do it now.
Afraid.
You got to do it now and come back. It's wonderful.
I don't really have to take a shit.
Dude.
Should I just do it just to do it?
Dude.
Well, so let me tell you something about a bidet. So my friend Brandon has one, and I was like, I got to try this. And after I tried it, I was like, I'm sold. This is wonderful. It's a most invigorating.
Oh, it's much better than using paper.
Is it cold?
It is cold, but you get used to it. I mean, you can get one that's warm. For some reason, I hooked it up, and the warm doesn't come through. I don't give a shit. But when my girl first got it, I'm like, I'm not using this. It was here for a month, no joke. And she's just like, use it. Fine. When I used it, I was like, what the hell have I been doing my whole life? I'm like, what have I been doing my whole life?
Because it almost feels a little gay at first, because you're like, there's water getting shot up your butthole.
It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. But once you do it, you're like, what the fuck have I been doing?
Yeah.
If I could... Once I make, if I can buy all my friends one, I should. I need to buy all Christmas gifts, because once you use one, you're going to thank me. I'm telling you.
I walked in his bathroom, I was like, I hope I have to take a shit at the end of this podcast, because he's got a bidet. I really can't believe you've never used one, Corey.
I don't know. Is it like something you got to get used to, or it's like a one-time like this?
Oh no! Once you do it, you're used to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you use it, you're like, where has this been my whole life?
Okay.
No joke. Now the problem with mine a little bit is, if you've seen, that's the one of those short toilets, like which I didn't even know they made until I bought this house, and I fucking have one.
Right.
Oh, I can't stand that short toilet, but a little extra here is when I use the bidet, I have to move over and tuck the nuts because it's a short toilet.
We're gonna put that.
So I'm telling you right now, before you use it, otherwise it'll nail you right in the nuts.
So you got to pick them up?
You got only because it's a short toilet. Normally you don't. Normally you don't. And I didn't even know they made short toilets. I didn't even know that was a fucking thing until I had one. And it's the worst thing ever. Like,
because your legs, your knees are up in your chin.
They're just it's super weird. It's just short toilet. I don't know how to explain it, because I've never seen one before until I had one.
Yeah.
And I hate it every day. And I'm like, I need to go get a new fucking toilet, because I hate that thing.
Interesting Brandon Girtz fact that I'm sure you can't find online.
5 stars. 5 stars already.
Dude, you go in there now and you do the podcast while the bidet's working, and see how long you can even ask questions. You'll just be in there moaning. You'll just be so happy.
Can we move all these microphones into there? We need some wireless ones.
I'm going to take a picture of you on the bidet at the end of the podcast, and we're going to post that on our Instagram after we post this.
Love it.
With just a big smile on your face.
Let's do it.
Yeah. You may not be trash talking, but you'll get a lot of followers after that.
I'll just be a sicko.
Me and Corey were just having a talk on the way here that he was having an issue that he's not a trash talker at all, and if it's holding him back. Do you trash talk? Do you know the art of it, trash talking?
No, not really. Like you said, the trash talk, it's a big part of our game, and people get attached to it. They hear it. They want to. They have something to look forward to. They're like, oh, this guy hates this guy. This guy hates that guy. I don't have that. If I don't like a guy and he says shit, you better believe I'm gonna bring the intensity. I love someone trash talking me.
Yeah.
Because I'm intense, and like when someone's trash talking me, it's personal, you know. So like I love a fighter to trash talk, you know. But am I one to just to say something to get a reaction? It's hard for me to do that. It's not natural. It's not natural to start saying some shit to them for no reason. I'm not gonna do it to build it up. Do I wish I could? Absolutely. We just saw the #1 trash talker and where he's at in life. He's making multi-million-dollar. He made
$99 million last year.
Conor McGregor made $99 million last year.
$47 million, or maybe that was 2018. 2019, he made $47 million.
Dude, his bidet is heated.
Oh yeah, I guarantee it. It's a whole the whole seat, everything's heated, you know. And he did it with his trash talking.
Isn't it crazy that we're all in businesses where like you can make a living and then you could go stratospheric with the amount of money you can make? Like there's comedians that I started with that are now. I started out with Joe Rogan. I remember me and him doing a gig together. We're just two kids doing a gig together, and I just found out that he gets like $50 million a year just from his podcast and stuff. And I was like, that's the guy I started out with, and it's crazy. Like, and it's just you never know who's going to make that kind of money, you know?
Sure. So are you one of those guys that needs to kind of feel something towards the other person? Like do you need, like in the back, are you one of those guys that needs to get a little bit angry at the person in order to beat them up?
In a way, because I've definitely fought people I like, you know, like Derek Campos is one I've always, and I fought, even my last guy, I liked him, I got respect for him, but will I build up a little thing, like he's trying to take what, you know, I got, he's trying to hurt my family, you know, like I think about my family, how they would react if this guy beat me up, like they don't want to see me get beat up, so I build it up a little bit, because I'm an angry fighter, you know, and some people say don't fight off of anger, don't do that. That's me, though. Like, I build off of that. I'm intense. I mean, if anybody knows me when I'm competitive, like, I'm intense about it, you know, and that's my natural state. I ain't making this up. This ain't fake intensity. I don't slap myself in the face to get pumped up. You know, like, I get pumped up about it. I get pumped up about competition, and then I get pumped up about someone thinking they can beat me up, you know?
Yeah.
And you on top of it with someone talking shit, like, I love that. Like, you're going to talk shit, like, it pierces me. I know it's a business, and you look at it, like, but to me, it's personal.
Sure.
When someone talks shit or says something, that's personal to me. Now I want to close their mouth, you know? So I'm always hoping someone talks shit. Am I going to be the first one to say something? No, because that's just not in me to fake out and say something. I don't even know what to say. Okay, I mean, got stuff to just make up and say, you know?
Yeah.
So, like I said, if someone talks shit, and I've only had it a few times in my career, like, I hope people talk shit. Like, I want them to come in and get in my face during weigh-ins or whatever. I want that. It hasn't happened that many times, but when they have, it's every time been a little extra, and I feel like every time that's happened, I've knocked the guy out. Just, I don't know what it is. I'm all about natural and my energy and everything, and every time someone talks shit, I come in there with a little extra.
Yeah, we just had Curtis on the show, and he's talking about Justin Willis. He said trash talk never bothered him, but Justin Willis just got through to him somehow. And he said, and I asked him, I was just like, and he beat Justin so soundly, and I said to him, why do you think he did it? And he said he thinks in his head Justin just knew he couldn't win and thought that was his best chance to just kind of rattle Curtis, but it worked the opposite way, you know? So, I mean, in a weird sort of way, it's an art. You have to know when to do it or when not to do it, you know?
And like you said, sometimes people talk shit and you come in over aggressive. You know, like some fighters aren't good coming in aggressive. That messes up their game plan.
Sure. Yeah.
That messes up the fluidity of how they fight, you know? But like I said, me on the other hand, like, that's how I fight. Like, I am pissed off. Like, I enjoy that. That's like part of how I am. Like, to me, it's fighting. I mean, like I said, I don't want to live, but I mean, I've been fighting forever. I was fighting before I got paid for it. I only started doing this because I was like, I can fight and get money for it. Like, I've been doing this shit for free forever. And not, you know, not to say it was just my natural thing. I've just always had that. I've just always been a fighter. That's just kind of who I've been, you know, and that's why I got into fighting, because it was, I can get money and do this, like, sign me up.
So you were the guy that was getting in fights in school and stuff, and were you starting the fights, or were you just...
and I always wanted to say, like, to think I wasn't, like, the big dick, like, I wasn't a dickhead. My point was, I never punched first, you know. I got the person to throw a punch at me first. That was always why I didn't think I was a dick. Like,
you were a vigilante.
You I was out making people mad enough to throw punches at me, and I like, I always used it like, well, look how, big he is. I'm not picking on the small kids. I ain't picking on people. I'm picking on the guys that think they're tough.
Yeah.
That was always me, like smaller, I'm only 5'7", I went and I pick on the big guys. I try to fuck with them and make them want to fight me because that's just what I just enjoy doing it,
It's funny that you brought up your height because we have something I knew immediately in common. I couldn't wait to bring it up, which is I'm 5'5", and my defense was always my comedy. I was always funny. Once I started getting on TV and once I started doing shows, the number one comment I would get afterwards was, oh, man, you're really much shorter than I expected. Like, I'd hear it all the time because there's something about seeing people on TV that you just assume for some reason that they're larger than life. And so I was like, you probably get that a lot, right? Like, because when people see you, because I'd seen a couple of your fights when I walked in, I was like, he's not that much taller than me. And that's funny. Like, I was thinking, oh, that's what people must think when they see me at a show and they've seen me on TV or something. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. A little bit. Definitely. Like you said, especially on TV when they're fighting, you look a little larger when you're beating somebody's ass.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a lot of people feel that about fighters is when you see them in person, they look more normal than you expect them to actually look,
I went out and trained with Team Alpha Male a little bit for... I don't know. It was a long time ago. It was when TJ was getting ready for Barral, and Dwayne flew me out just to help him get ready. But I remember being like, man, these are a bunch of Oompa Loompas, bro. They were all jump roping, and they were all the exact same height, like Uriah, Joseph Benavides. I don't know if Garbrandt was there or not, but TJ, they were all the exact same height. And I was like, whoa, this is weird,
I didn't realize even how tall you were until I started seeing our pictures next to each other. Mm-hmm. And I realized I looked like you were bringing me to Disney World when I was your kid. Like, I just started to realize, because when I saw you, I was like, oh, he's not that much taller than me. But then I see the pictures, and I'm like, oh, you're a pretty tall dude.
Yeah,
so
I suppose.
Yeah. Do you think that that's one of the reasons that you were, because I know that that's why I was funny, is that's how I could get people to like me when I was a kid, is because I was shorter than all the other kids. I knew that being funny would be, like, the tough guys would like me for that. And then I kind of had protection.
Yeah. I was, like I said, just fighting was my deal. I was the protection.
Yeah, but that's kind of cool.
When the fights came out, because parties, when you're younger, you're at a party, there'd be people you don't know, and it would always be like, Girtz, come over here, I got a problem, come over here. And I was always that one. Like I said, it was just, I just enjoyed it, and, you start doing something enough, you get better at it, and that was just, always the one I was, and maybe it was because I was shorter, who knows, small man complex, who knows
I don't know
how
if it's
it builds,
a complex. I just know that I started to learn that we get disrespected more, and I know that because when I was coming up in show business, I got a TV show at one point, and they were like, you got to get a lawyer, and they were like, we're going to hook you up with the top Hollywood lawyer. And, like, they were like, this is, like, a really important guy to know. And when I walked in, he was my height. And I remember thinking, like, he's too short to be my lawyer. And I was like, and I thought that about a guy my own height. And I was like, wait, I'm actually, like, what is it, heightism? And I was like, and he's a great lawyer. And I'm still friends with the guy and everything. But every time I see him, I'm like, oh, look at that, he's my height. Like, you expect him to be top Hollywood lawyer,
larger than life. A
lot of really successful people are much shorter than you think. Tom Cruise is much shorter than people think. Do you know in one of the movies with Nicole Kidman, they had to dig a little thing for him to walk, for her to walk in next to him, and they were on the beach because Nicole Kidman
to make it look like she wasn't towering over him.
She wasn't taller than him. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up, Girtz?
Wyoming, Minnesota. So from the tundra.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Vikings.
Tundra. Yeah, that's why I'm a Vikings fan.
Okay.
And did you have a happy childhood there? Was it fun?
Oh yeah. Winter, back then winter was freaking great to me. As a kid, I don't know why you don't mind winter. All kids love winter.
Yeah.
You don't feel the cold. You don't tell yourself you're cold all the time, So all I did was sled, snowmobile, ice skate, like all the back then I remember winter was my favorite season, which is just crazy. When you're young and stuff like that, there was just tons of stuff to do. Now I absolutely hate winter. Yeah. You know, like I'm not out skating, I'm not out doing it, just deal with cold.
Yeah.
You know, so that's really what brought me here. Not just because obviously the training brought me here, but it was to get away from the winters.
So why did you pick Colorado? It was because Colorado's got a winter too. That's, you know,
this ain't winter compared to Minnesota. Like look at it outside right now. I mean, like,
people think mountains and they think cold, but it's not. The weather is great here.
Oh, it's amazing here.
300 days of sunshine. One of the reasons I
how do you
moved
get
here.
past that? You know, so I still try to tell people it's not great here, so they don't move here. But other than that, you know.
Yeah.
But what really brought me here is my friend Pat Barry and Rose. They moved. I trained with him in Minnesota, and they moved here. And they were here for about a year, and pretty much I just remember talking to Pat, and he's like, you really need to come. He knew I wanted to get out of Minnesota. So he's like, you really need to come check this place out. You know, it's a freaking great place. And when I got here, I fell in love, you know, and like I said, the weather. I mean, you got to have balance in life, you know. If you're somewhere where you hate and you have great training, but you hate everything else, it's not gonna. It doesn't freaking matter. You go. If I'm training in the middle of a desert and that's my life and just training, and I'm gonna hate life. You know, doesn't matter.
Do you like to train?
I do. There's definitely times that I don't want to do certain things. You know, I don't like running on a treadmill. I don't like that shit. That's why I never run on a treadmill, really. You know, but there's a million ways to get from A to B, you know, cardio-wise or whatever. So I try to stick away from the stuff I hate to do now. I've learned throughout my career, there's a lot of ways to get from A to B.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Corey, you love training, you told me, right?
Yeah, I like the creative process of training there. I, of course, have my workouts that I really am not the hugest fan of, like some of the conditioning ones where I know I'm going to be really exhausted afterwards. But I've kind of like tricked myself into liking everything, though.
Yeah.
You know, even something like weight cutting, I'm just like, all right, you're doing something really good for your body. It's, you know, like you're clearing everything out of there, and then you can just fill it up with good stuff. So I think if you can I think the mind can trick itself into anything. That's right. Like,
powerful tool right there.
Yeah.
Like you just said from the beginning, you trick the mind. You get the mind on board, the body's on board.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example of something that I really didn't like. And I think maybe weight cutting was one of them. When I was in college, I used to hate cutting weight because, like, obviously I was in college and it was just, like, shit food all the time, which I loved. But then I woke up one day and I was like, I'm just going to pretend that I like this for a while. And then the pretending turned into, like, actually enjoying eating healthy and all. Yeah.
Why don't you start pretending that you like me and see if that actually transfers?
I don't know. It'd take a lot of energy out of
it. So Brandon, what I always think is interesting is when we talk to the fighters or comedians, I always say we start out our careers, and then along the way, you never know what you're going to kind of become known for. It's just a journey, and it's never written. And so one of the things that you become known for, which I thought was interesting, was your gash on your head. It's like, and I watched that entire fight, which I thought was amazing. So the first question I have is like, does it ever occur to you? You've watched that fight back a few times, I'm assuming, right?
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
Does it ever occur to you that if you were just walking in the street and you had a cut like that in your head, like people would rush you to the hospital, and instead you're out there just going back out and fighting? It's like, it's a weird concept, isn't it?
It is. And I do, like you said, look back at that, you know, fight and stuff, and it's one of the ones you can look back and be proud of, you know, because you get adversity. Anytime you get adversity in life and you get over that little hump, it's amazing feeling.
Best feeling ever. Yeah.
Best feeling ever. And that cut, you know, and how much blood was going down my face, and, you know, even feeling it, I could feel like I had a hole in my head.
That's what I wanted to ask you, is if you were aware of it.
It felt like I had a slight breeze, you know, that wasn't getting covered up, you know. So I could
that's
feel
crazy.
it felt weird. It felt weird, but I remember telling myself, you know, in there, it's like, it ain't no big deal, you know, and it was just going back and looking at it. It was one of those things like you really got over some adversity. You know, no one wants a hole in their head, you know, and to continue to get punched at it. And I had no care, you know, in it. I was like, there's a part in the fight you can see right after it. Like I looked at it and I wiped and I kind of looked like, oh, I got blood on my hands. And you can see me get even more pissed. Like I was like, what the fuck? Like, I could see myself, and I remember that moment looking at it, like, and just pissed. And I even came forward right after it. And it was just, a proud moment to yourself where you're like, something bad really happened to you, and you turn around and you don't let it affect you. In life, there's a lot of shit that's going to happen to you. It's how it affects you or not, Like there, I could have just saw that and been like, oh, fuck, it's over, Like, oh, shit, he got me. Like, he got me. But instead, it kind of amped me up. And that was kind of a proud moment to myself, knowing, I've never bled even close to that. Not even close,
How was the cut caused?
Closed?
How was it caused?
A knee.
It was a knee?
Yeah, it was a knee.
And after the knee hits you, and I'll never be a fighter and I'll never be in a fight because now Corey's with me, so if anyone wants to kick my ass, I just send them to my boy Corey. But when you're in that situation, do you become aware immediately, like, something really bad just happened and I have to, like, do you know immediately something really bad happened and now you're going to have to deal with that? Like, does your mind actually go there?
In a way, like you said, like I said, I felt it. I felt it. I looked at my hand with the blood on it, and then I felt it run down my face, and it was like, fuck, I got to get him,
Right.
And that's what went through my head. Like something, like he got me, now I got to get him,
Yeah, so it helped.
In a way, like I said, like watching it back, I could see when I looked at it and I was like, this motherfucker,
Yeah.
And I remember feeling that, like a little bit of a like pump up, like I said, I'm not a typical fighter, in the sense of, I wouldn't call myself a martial artist. I wouldn't say that. Have I been training and doing a ton of stuff throughout my life? Like, absolutely. I've been doing, mixed martial arts for over a decade now, but would I call myself a mixed martial artist? Nah, I'm definitely a fighter. And like I said, that type of stuff amps me up. It doesn't throw me off or anything like that. I like that adversity. I like fighting, and that's always like, oh, you're in a fight.
Yeah.
You're in a fight. Let's go.
So what does like a good performance look to you then? What does it look like? Because I'm realizing now while we're doing all of these interviews and just watching different guys, I'm like, for me, I get proud of the fights where I did really well as far as like not getting hit and closing out a shutout.
Yeah.
Would that be a good performance to you, or would it, like you said, you like to fight, so it's more about what, like?
When I look back at it, it's did I give it my all every freaking time, and that's when I was never even always like that. Like I said, I've always been a fighter, but when I first started, some of my fights were I was being more careful out there, looking for the best shot. Like you said, not getting hit, like that was kind of a thing to my, like trying not to get hit at all, like make a beautiful performance. But, I lost some fights because I was trying to do that.
Sure.
And then when I finally was like, just go out there and fucking give it hell. Go out there, make it your type of fight. If someone, like I've said before, if someone came in this house right now, I'm not going to step back, move around. I'm going to fucking grab them as fast as I can,
Right.
and I'm going to try to beat the shit out of them instantly.
Yeah.
And that's what I've kind of adapted to my fighting style. And, like I said, everyone's a little different, but mine's go out there and go to kill them.
That's just your personality. You've learned that's your personality.
Exactly. In life, you got to start when you're getting older or whatever you're in. You learn you. And that's getting better as a person. And you learn how to build on you, the type of person you are.
Yeah.
So like you said, my best fight is knowing I went out there and gave everything, even if I lost in something or if I get knocked on wood, knocked out, but I was out there and I was giving it everything I had. That's my best performance.
Well, yeah, I hear people say that, but I'm curious, like, what is like give it all you got? Because to me, giving all I got means giving 100% of my focus to the game plan and to shutting the guy down. That's like me giving all that I got. So if I go out and I start slugging with the guy, that's not me giving everything that I got.
Right.
But that's just me. I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong because everyone's different. But can you just like elaborate on it a little bit? Like what is giving all you got?
Knocking them out.
Okay. Yeah. going out with the intention to knock them out and doing that. That's
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Even my last fight, which when I look back, it took me for a while to even be happy with because I didn't put them away. Every time I go out there, I literally want to put that person away. I feel like I should knock them out, or they shouldn't be able to just walk out of there on ease.
Yeah,
And that's I'm not even kidding. My last fight, it took me a little bit to even be happy with it, even though I came back from a huge injury and everything like that, and I was able to go toe-to-toe with the tough guy and pretty much close to put him out. I was literally depressed about it for months because in my head, I was like, I'm putting this guy away, and I didn't. So yeah, I was affected by it for a little bit. I had to sit there and coax myself into being like, oh, it was still good, man. It was still good. It was still good, So definitely my perfect performance is going out there and putting someone away in a great fashion.
Yeah, okay.
Dude, isn't that crazy that like we can have our wins and stuff? Like for me as a comedian, I know that there's shows that I've come off where people are like, man, you killed. And I just know that I missed certain lines, or I knew I just didn't feel as comfortable. And no matter, and I try to do the same thing. I'll try to talk myself into going like, well, I guess it was a great show. And it's just like, but it still pisses you off because you go in the back, you're like, yeah, but that really wasn't what I was capable of doing. Nobody else knows it but you. It's just a weird game that we play with ourselves.
In our own head, like you just said, only you know. And shit, feelings or whatever, we can't explain it, what we feel or why it's this way or not. It's just how, it's inside of us naturally. Like you said, you didn't feel like something was right. Like, even though if it was good and people are telling you it's good, it's like, but to you it didn't feel good. And at the end of the day, isn't that kind of what matters? If we're not good with what we do, like that's all that's really, not saying that's only important, but if you're not happy with it, doesn't matter who is happy with it. As long you got to be happy with it.
So are you saying in a sense that if any fight goes to a decision, you're not going to be happy because you didn't, like, you'll go home and that won't be a satisfying performance for you?
Yeah. Because that's what I go out. That's what I go out to do. I go out there to put them away, and I feel like I have my back against the wall, and you gotta put this person away.
Yeah.
And then if I don't, it's like, you didn't do your job.
And have you ever been knocked out?
I've been knocked out once.
Take me through that. What does that feel like? Like the entire experience?
It was a dream, no joke. Like it was a straight dream, and when I got up from it, I didn't believe it. When I got up, I was fighting somebody completely different than the person I fought. I had the image of the guy I saw that I was warming up that was next to me in the back room. Like that's what I thought I fought. Like it was a weird thing, very weird, I don't want to say nightmare because it wasn't that, but it was definitely a little dream world. Woke up and you just don't believe it.
Yeah.
You don't believe that someone could have knocked you out for one, and you just you don't believe it, and then you watch it. Because usually when you're in a fight, you can look right up and they're replaying it, and you watch it, and you're like, wow.
It's almost like you're watching outside of yourself.
Exactly. And when it happened, it wasn't like I was out there and I felt good, and when it happened, I was giving my all. So it was one of those things where it might have shaped me even a little better because I wasn't worried to ever get knocked out again.
Oh, okay. So I was just going to ask you if it affected your future fights.
I never really worried about it again because, like I said, there was no pain from it. There was no nothing.
It's the worst thing that could happen.
It's the worst thing that could happen, and it didn't feel that bad, because, like I said, when it happened, it wasn't out there just trying to play points or do anything like that or not fighting my style. I was going out there and giving it hell, and it just happened. And that's just like anything can happen in life. It can hit you, and then you get back up, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of felt like. That moment kind of made you feel like, well, anything can freaking happen, man. So deal with it and move on.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Like I said, I've had victories where I've sat longer and hated myself over it versus that loss just because I felt like I gave it my all, So it didn't stick with me too long, and I knew, if that's the worst thing that can happen, not a big deal.
I think a lot of people are really going to like to hear that. Because I get a lot of questions, and even I myself, because I've never been knocked out, I myself get curious because I watch some guys get knocked out, and then they fight very different afterwards. And then I watch some guys get knocked out, and it doesn't matter at all. So I always get really curious to see, especially when I'm watching UFC or whatever, if I know that the person had like a pretty devastating knockout in the one before, how they're going to come out again, because I know it's either in their head or it's not in their head at that point. You know, it's really interesting.
Exactly, and some people don't come back the same. That's the whole thing. It's like that or injuries or whatever. It's in the head. It ain't that their body ain't able to now. It ain't, you know, it's all mental. And some people don't come back from it. We're not all created the same, and some people might let that shit affect them. Yeah, you know, but that's something you got to look at and be like, you know, it's just something that happened, you know, and move on from it. I try not to let things affect me long, you know, because life will throw you a ton of shit, you know.
Well, there's no way you can be a successful fighter if you're going to let you either learn immediately that you're going to be able to be okay with that, or you're just not meant for the business. And I think in comedy, it's the same thing. You learn immediately if you're going to get heckled and you can't handle that feeling, you're just not going to be. And I've met many comedians who were great when I started out, and they were just like, I can't do it. I can't deal with the audience heckling me. I can't. And you just know immediately, and it's just like, and they were not meant to do it. If they would have been able to get through that, you know? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I totally agree with you.
And I was going to say, and the other thing in comedy that's very similar is I was once booed on stage by 300 people. Booed hard, like booed. And that for a comedian, that's so the opposite of what you're trying to get. You're trying to get laughs, but boo is like, we hate you. And I remember embracing it. I remember thinking like, this has been my worst nightmare since I started out in comedy. And I'm being booed, and I'm like kind of soaking it in. I remember saying to the audience, I'm not going to leave until you start clapping. I'm going to just keep letting you boo me. And they just booed themselves out. Like they just started clapping eventually because they just wanted me to leave, and I wouldn't go. And I remember looking back and going, oh, okay, that's the worst it could be. It could never get worse than an entire room of 300 people booing you. I still got up the next morning.
You're still alive. You're still alive. Yeah. You're still good.
Yeah.
The sun's still shining. Life goes on, right?
Yeah. But you guys are dealing with it in a whole different way, though, because physically now you're taking on damage. That's a very, very intense thing. I mean, mentally that's going to be with me forever, but your knockout, like that's physically done something to you, you know? Like what physically happens when someone gets knocked out? Do you know? Like, I'm really interested.
I don't know. Some people get concussed. I wasn't concussed.
But what causes it? Like, what causes somebody's?
I think it's a few things. I think that there's a nerve in your jaw. I think there's a couple different types of knockouts because you see all the time different places on the head. But I'm not a doctor, so this is probably
but you're a
maybe
psychologist,
just a bunch of bullshit.
This is bro science.
I have a bachelor's degree in nothing medical.
He always gets mad at me because I call the podcast the psychology of comedy and combat. And he's like, we're not psychologists. And I'm like, nobody knows, dude.
Well, I am.
You are kind of, yeah.
I'm a bachelor's.
You got bachelor's in it.
But anyways, I think it's this nerve in your chin. Okay. I think that's one way to where I think if your chin gets moved enough or something, the nerve will just turn the lights off. And then I think that there's, I watched a TED Talk on how when the brain wobbles in the head, the two hemispheres of the brain separate a little bit, and that's what causes it. Or maybe that was the long term. If you have too much of your hemispheres moving around, they can separate a little bit, and that creates like long-term problems. And then I think that there's just, if you get hit hard enough on the one side of your head, it bounces to the other side of your head, and that can turn the lights off too. So
Brandon, your brain bounced around in your head.
I guess so.
But that's what we signed up for, and I think everyone knows that. If you're in the sport, you know that's
part of it. That's part of it.
And I've never been knocked out, but I used to have a huge fear of getting knocked out. I mean, I'm sure like everyone probably does it. Oh yeah, but the thing is about like those types of fears is I've always been like, because I always, so for example, when I was fighting the Sun Sao, and this has happened through multiple fights, not just with the Sun Sao, but I'll occasionally have a dream of me getting knocked out, you know, or I'll have a dream of like me missing weight, or I'll have a dream of like.
Before fights, it's always dreams. I have all those dreams where I'm fighting somebody I'm not, and I'm like, but I got to fight next week. Why did I take this fight? And
weird stuff like that,
Always. I always have those dreams before fights.
Yeah,
it's
or
crazy.
I'll wake up and be not from while I'm in the dream. I'll wake up on the morning of my dream and be like, "Oh shit, I got to make weight today. I'm like 20 pounds over." I'll just have like crazy shit like that. But
or I ate this. I shouldn't have ate that. Why did I eat that last night? Yeah.
Or I'm 3 hours away from the weigh-ins place and I have to be there in 30 minutes. Just like weird stuff. But I always have like an occasional dream of me getting knocked out or whatever. And instead of like just like being super scared of that, I'll just ask myself, like, all right, well, what happens if you do get knocked out?
Yeah.
And then I'll just go down that rabbit hole. And at the end of that rabbit hole, it's usually not that bad. It's like, well, you just lose, and then you go back to the gym when you're better, and then you keep doing the same thing that you get to do every single day, and it's not that bad.
I was in LA once, and I used to do the Tonight Show quite a bit. And I became kind of friendly with Jay Leno. And one day I was in town, and he's like, come by and see the show. Just watch the show. And I came by just to watch the show. And then one of the producers came over to me and was like, one of our guests isn't showing up. Can you put together a set real fast? We need a guest. And I just started freaking out. Like, oh my, I've never been in that situation where I couldn't practice anything. So I just started panicking and writing a set real fast or whatever. And just when I was getting the set ready, the guest had come in. So I was off. I didn't have to do it. But I had that night a dream. And the dream was that I was at an AC/DC concert, just enjoying it. And one of the roadies came over to me and was like, are you Mitch Fatel, the comedian? And I was like, yeah. And they go, our guitar player didn't show up. You have to go up on stage and play guitar. And I was like, I don't know how to play guitar. And they were like, just learn. And I remember like waking up in the dream, like, I don't know how to play. And I remember like I got up on stage and I was holding the guitar, and then like the curtain came up and I didn't know what to do. And everybody was like, why isn't this idiot playing? And I woke up freaked out, like sweating.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Weird.
We all have these performance dreams. So we talked about Derek Campos, and you talked about the fact that you like him. So I have a couple questions, because you had a trilogy with him, right? So when you fight someone 3 times, does almost a relationship kind of develop between you two that that no one will ever have? You know, like you've shared battle with him 3 times. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just one time usually you have a bond with somebody after a fight like that.
Really?
Like a respect. It's definitely a respect. Unless they, like I said, were a douchebag or something. I've still fought, like I said, it's only happened a couple of times, but where somebody did something before it and I didn't drop it after, because like I said, I take this personal. Even if he's like, oh, it's just build up for the fight, I'm like, fuck you, dude. This is real to me, man. But usually after I fight somebody, there's a respect in there. After every time they stepped in there, and you know what you're putting on the line, and after the fight, I'm usually pretty cool with everybody I fight, because you did something not a lot of people in this world would know about. It's even shit, schoolyard fights. I remember some of those weird, like something happened, you hated that person you fought, and after you freaking shook hands with them, and now you just fought them in the schoolyard, and now you're cool with that person.
Yeah.
Because you got to respect something about fighting. You really grow respect with other people, because you know especially if you're fighting, you know what it takes. And to stand toe and toe with another man, if he decides he's going to do that with you, like there's a respect there,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like you said, pretty much everybody I've ever fought, I have a little bit of respect for them. They were willing to step in there and go against me. You know?
At the end of that fight, it was a really interesting fight, because first of all, that was the cut fight, and second of all, they were booing afterwards because they stopped the fight because of your cut, and then Derek started yelling at them.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. Did you see that fight? So Derek started yelling at them like, we just gave you our blood and our guts, and you guys are booing.
Yeah.
And that's got to feel really weird, too, to be booed after you just put your hearts out on something like that.
Well, they definitely weren't booing us. So it was they were just booing that they stopped it, because that was one of the loudest crowds I've ever been involved in.
Where was it?
I think that one was in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So they were... I mean, obviously they're enjoying the fight. I mean, you watch it, everyone's on their feet, and they weren't booing us. They were just booing that they stopped it, because it was one of those things. I mean, I didn't mind the boos because I was pissed. I was pissed they stopped it.
I saw you were pissed.
That was terrible to me, just because it was one of those things. Like, it was a great fight. I was feeling better. I was starting after the cut. The cut was early. Second round, they let me fight with this cut. and it never changed. You know,
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Yeah, that happened with the Nate Diaz fight too, right?
Yeah, that was a bad stop if you ask me too.
I was like, why are you gonna stop it in the third if it happened in the first? Like,
and it hasn't changed, you know, and that was the thing for me. And the audacity of they had it and they walked away from me in the cage, and I'm ready to go third round. I already stood up and I was ready to go a third round, and then they come in and they're like, no, it's over, you know. And the doctor didn't even say that when he was right next to me. Like, I was ready, I was mentally prepared. And the thing is, something like that, you got blood gushing on you, and you like just a little bit of me getting ready for that next third round was like a thing. Like, no, I'm fucking ready. And then they come and like, you know, walk away for a second, and then from the outside of the cage they're like, no, and I'm like, you walked way over there, so I didn't fucking freak out on you. Like, you know, and I was ready to go, you know. So like I said, I could understand the boos because I was in my head. I was like, "What the fuck," too. So.
Oh, so you did understand the boos? Huh?
I understood the boos. They weren't booing us. They weren't booing the fight. You know, they weren't booing us. They were just booing that they stopped it.
Yeah.
They wanted to see more blood, which is what these fans want to see all the time. They want to see blood. You know, this is entertainment. It's a crazy thing.
It's a crazy thing
that people want to watch the car crashes. But that's the world we live in. You're driving by a major car crash. You're looking like, is anybody dead? Like, you're looking, how bad is it? Oh my God! Like, you want to see a worse car crash? What is that? Like, you want to see that? Like, you're driving by, like, how bad is it? How bad is it? But that's human nature. You want to see this. People used to freaking go and watch people get stoned in the streets. Like, what's wrong with us? Like, we want to watch that, you know. And it's, you know, all the way from growing up. There's a fight. How many people do you see circling around the fight on the schoolyard? Everybody wants to watch it, you know. And you don't want to see once there's blood, it's even better. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you know, that's people. Like, we're weird, we're crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
You know?
I once asked Corey, I was like, why do you think people enjoy it? And Corey said, because I think most people watch you do something that they couldn't dream of doing. And I think that's why. I mean, I became a fight fan by accident just because I was on the road doing comedy, and I was like, I needed an outlet when I went back to my room to do something to get out of my head. And for some reason, watching fighters was so fascinating to me because I was like, that's just nothing. I could never do it. Never do it. And the idea that people can go in and do that, I still get scared if I'm about to get in a fight. Like, I get physically scared, and I think that's just a personality type that you don't get scared. Like, you don't care if someone hits you in your face. Am I correct?
No, you can't. You can't.
You
really
like it? What?
Do you like it?
I'm not gonna say I like it, but I'm gonna straight up say I don't feel it. Not that I don't feel it, but I get so fucking intense that you get fucking hit me with a bat like it. That ain't a thought in my head. Like, I'm not saying I like to get punched. I know people. I mean, my friend Gates, I love it. I get punched. It's like nah. I don't like it, but do I feel it? Fuck no. I don't feel nothing.
I always notice the difference when I'm warming someone up to go corner them versus when I'm actually warming up. And, like, yeah, like you said, you can hit me with the bat in the back if I'm warming up because I'm not going to feel anything like that. But then when I'm warming someone up and then, like, so just recently I was cornering Banks and Josh Marsh. And we're in the back and Banks and Josh are throwing punches at me. And I'm like, Banks hits me in my lip, and I'm like, dude, like, come on, man. But we're like in a fight. I'm not feeling that. No way. But yeah, he hit me in my lip, and I was like, God, hey, bro, like, chill a little bit, you know? Like, I'm not your guy, dude. I'm not your opponent.
But on the other hand, Corey has had, and I bring it up a lot because it's so not a big deal to him. Like, did you ever see Corey get the armbar by Lurie Alcantara?
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I always ask him about
pronouncing things wrong.
Alcantara.
You've been saying Lurie.
Lurie.
Yuri.
Dude, it's Lurie. Who cares? He's not even in the UFC anymore. Who gives a shit?
Better.
Is it Yuri?
Yeah.
I don't care. Let that guy kick. I got you. You can kick his ass. He had his arm basically bent backwards, and whenever I ask him about it, he's like, yeah, I guess it kind of hurt. Like, he doesn't even kind of like if someone bent my elbow like that, like, that'd be my story. I tell everybody wherever I go the rest of my life. And my elbow popped out, like, but it's just a day at the work for him, you know?
Oh, yeah, just another day at the work. You know what you sign up for. You know, he was in there to go to death, you know? So, arm, shit, you got two of them, right?
Yeah, I would be pissed if someone stopped to fight. Like, was the blood getting in your eye?
It's not that it wasn't terrible. It wasn't like, it was literally at the best spot it could fucking be, right in the middle where it would go down the crook of my nose. Like it wasn't going in my eye. I wasn't seeing red through my eye. When I go like this, because there was just so much, it would splash over, So, but it wasn't going straight into my eye. And like I said, the doc, and I remember it perfectly. He's like, as long as the cut doesn't go into the eye or, change to here, and the cut never moved, and that's where I was pissed because it didn't do what you said, doc. So we could have kept freaking going, and I remember that after that fight, of course, the same doc that stopped the fight's the one stitching me up in the back. Oh. And I remember he's trying to explain to me, and I'm just in a point like, and I got my coach here, he's just fired up like crazy. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't. And I'm like, he's stitching my head right now. Just like, I'll just let him do that because he'd say shit, and I'm kind of just nodding my head. Yeah, man. Yeah, because he's stitching up my freaking head. I'm not gonna. Yeah, am I pissed right now? Do I want to be like, you fucking suck? Absolutely. But he's stitching up my head. So I remember I had to like calm down. My coach had to leave the room. Like it was like, dude, I'm like, he's stitching up my head right now. Like, let's not say shit right now.
We'll beat his ass afterwards.
Yeah. Let him do his job right now, and we'll get him after. But I just remember that. I'm like, just don't say anything right now.
Corey, that's crazy. Did you ever have to have stitches after a fight?
Yeah.
Where? What for? What?
On my nose. I've had a couple on the eyebrows. Not like any big ass cuts, though.
Yeah, it's crazy because like stitches are a big thing. If someone goes to the hospital for stitches, and you guys just get these stitches just put in you like that. Like you were just. Like, you weren't even in a hospital getting stitched up, right? No,
it's pretty much, they usually have a doc there that afterwards will just go around to all the fighters.
This is
make
nutty.
A list of red cuts, and he'll just lidocaine them, stitch them up, and then that's
And
it.
you guys realize, like, or do you realize, like, you're not normal. Like, that's not a normal thing. Like, if you cut yourself, usually, like, if you have a cut like that, you usually will be rushed to the hospital by your wife or your girlfriend, and then you're crying and stuff. Like, you're not just going, like, now I'm going to go out and fight another round like this. Like, that's why, like, I remember watching it, and they're dabbing something in it, and I'm sitting at home going, like, I just want Brandon to go, like, ow, that really hurts. Like, because that's what I would be like, ow, that hurts, and you're just not even thinking about it.
But like you said, we aren't normal. No fighters are normal. They might be a little different in different ways, but we're definitely not normal.
So if that doesn't scare you, what does scare you in life? What will scare you?
In life or in fighting, like, because what would always scare me in fighting or competition is not performing. Like, that would be my thing. Not like, it wasn't even in my head that I was going to lose. It was like not performing to my best abilities. Always been a fear. Wrestling, I was always a head case in wrestling. Wrestling was a build up to try to get better at fighting because I never got over that hump of not performing. It was the days that I could let that go, I was my best. The days that I didn't, definitely not my best, and I throughout wrestling, I never was able to figure out over that hump. Like, I always had anxiety about it, and like I said, it wasn't anxiety about losing. It was anxiety about not performing, and then when you have that, you just don't perform right, so you're losing. You're setting yourself up for failure. Yeah. So when I was finally able to just drop that, like, that's when I became a better fighter.
How did you combat that? How did you just drop it?
And it wasn't I just dropped it. There wasn't a day that I finally was here, was able to know how to do it. It was definitely took some, but it was coming here to Colorado, and it was my friend, and I give them the most credit. It was Pat Barry. He was the first one to kind of get through to me, like, fuck it, throw, like, he was one of the first, and then Gaethje was the next. That when I came here, I had those two to kind of start to instill that in me. And those were my guys. And it started to be like, dude, if just give it your all. And after that, who gives a fuck? And I started to really implement that. And like I said, it just broke through in my head, like, yeah, just, how to fucking fight. Yeah. Just go out there and give it your all. If you win, perfect. If you lose, it wasn't meant to be, and for some God-willing reason, and it was them too, though, for some reason, that were able to get through to me. I'm hard-headed.
I'm hard-headed too.
Not a lot of people get through to me, and through my life, like, just there's only been certain coaches that have been able to get through to me, you know. Otherwise, I'm just like, yeah, you know, like it just doesn't. And for some reason in the world, people can get through to you, you know. And those were two people that get through to me, and nothing to do, you know, this was before even Gaethje had all his success or anything like that. It had nothing to do with, oh, I look up to you because you've done this. And I had nothing to do with that, you know. It was just, you know, that was my boy, and he was just able to get through to me, you know.
That's awesome. That's cool, man, because that's hard.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard that some people are easy coachable. I'm definitely not that easy coachable person, you know, but to have someone get through to you is a big thing. And that's why I have major respect for those guys, or major love for both of them, because they were able to get through to me, which is something not a lot of people can do.
Yeah, and you don't know why they were able to get through to you. You don't know there was something about them, the way they talked to you or something. Because I've had that too. Certain comedians or something that got through to me, and then other that I just don't want to talk to. I just not, you know, it's weird. We just connect with some people.
It's what you just said, how you connect with some people. You don't have to explain everything. You know what I mean? In this world, there's so many unexplainable things.
Yeah.
You know, and just a reason, I have no idea why they could get through to me, but all these other coaches throughout my life. I mean, I've been, even in wrestling, I went to a sports psychologist. Like, my coach wanted me to go to a sports psychologist because it was a known thing. Like, in my head, I couldn't get through it. I had all the physical tools. I had everything, you know. No one beat me in practice. I don't know why, because I could in practice, I had this thing. I got to see these guys every day. I'm not going to let them think they're better. You know, I just had that competitive edge. So I was that gym guy. I'd never get taken down, and never this, never that.
Yeah.
You know, because I could do it there, because, like I said, I see these guys, even though I like them all, I just couldn't give that edge. I couldn't give you thinking you're better than me, you know, at this, you know? So, but then when it come to fight, just something in my head would just go off every time, you know?
Yeah. Maybe you had to accept, maybe you had to accept that there were going to be times you were going to lose as well in order to be able to get through to that point. Because I know that for me, one of my biggest fears still is always that I'm going to let people down. Like, that's always what I'm scared of. So if I have an audience member who comes back for a second show, which happens a lot because I'm really good. And so I'm like a great comedian. I am. I'm like one of the best. And so a lot of times people will come the next night and go, we wanted to come see your show again. And I immediately feel like, oh, they're going to know that it's the same act I did yesterday and all the magic's gone. And I get in my head about two people I never even met.
Know.
Because I feel like, oh, they're going to leave going, oh, he wasn't as good as I thought. And then that gets in my head, and then my performance is really messed up because of that. And I still have a hard time. Corey's got me to his sports psychologist, because I still have a hard time feeling like it's okay to, it's almost like you have to know you can let someone down to be able to flourish, you know?
Absolutely. Two people can't dictate you, you know?
Yeah. And Corey, do you have any sense at all when you start to have a lot of people believe in you that, like, oh, I don't want to let them down, or are you comfortable enough in yourself to not care about that?
No, I remember when I did lose, and it wasn't something that I even, like, it was just like word vomit a little bit, but I was in the back and I was kind of just sitting there, and I remember I looked at my coach, Christian, and I was like, hey, man, like, I'm sorry. And, like, it wasn't like, it was just something that came out of my mouth. Like, my jaw opened, and that's what came out of my mouth. And he looked at me, and he was like, don't ever be sorry. I would do this every single day with you if you wanted. You know?
Wow.
And that,
yeah.
So maybe I did a little bit before, because I know that the expectation was pretty high for me. But no, ever since then, I just, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, the people that believe in me don't care. They're going to love me either way.
Yeah, and that's where you have to find it. You've often said that you think of yourself as Corey Sandhagen, the guy, before Corey Sandhagen, the fighter, right?
Sure.
That, like, yeah. What about you? Do you look at yourself separate as a fighter, or are you just Girtz the fighter to yourself still?
Sort of, because
He's
like
the competitor.
Yeah,
for sure. When we play spike ball together, spike ball is just like a little park game.
Yeah,
Girtz is the most competitive person I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah, man, like flustered, bro. If he's losing, flustered, like legitimately pissed, bro. Not like a little bit, like, man, like good game. Like, he's like pissed, bro. Like, when he loses, he's pissed.
Dude, if he gets like that, just put him on the bidet. It'll just calm him right down. Calm him right down.
There's no bidets at the park.
Dude, like I said, I'm a competitor, and I'm not here like, oh, another day. It's like, you play paper, rock, scissors. I'm gonna get into it. You know, I'm here to win. That's
I've
just
heard that,
always
yeah.
been me. That's just always been me. I'm about winning. I'm not gonna. It's not. I'm gonna fake. I'm not faking nothing. Like, this is my emotions, and I'm into it. You know, like I said,
Yeah.
It's about not everything in life's about winning. Obviously, maybe I don't know.
I would challenge Girtz to a rock paper scissors contest right now, but I'm afraid if I won, he'd walk away.
But the fact of the matter is, it's true. Like, even over Christmas, I was playing with my family. We were playing some stupid board game, and I was like, man, it really sucks. Me and my nephew were losing so bad, and I was like, this still feels just as bad as any kind of loss, that we're getting our asses kicked in Pictionary. Like, I remember thinking, like, God, I was like, and it took me a while to shake it off afterwards, because I was like, I should have had that, you know. And I guess that's just the competitive nature of human beings.
All humans are competitive. You got to have a little bit of competitive.
Winning just feels so good. I just think it's when we start to define ourselves by winning. You know, there was a point where I started getting. I remember when I was a waiter and I just wanted people to notice me. And I thought, once I get on stage and I'm noticed, life's going to be perfect. And I started performing, and then all of a sudden I started getting compliments, and it felt really good, but only for a little while. Like, it never made me feel good the next day. And I was like, oh, it's like you can never quite get enough of it. And that's why you have to find kind of joy outside of other things, too. True. You disagree?
No,
you just gave me the most disagreeable look. Like, you're a pussy, dude.
It's true. I can see that. Like I said, I've just never been okay with losing. Whatever it is, it ain't okay. Like you just said, if I'm playing a 5-year-old in something, like, my kids will learn that. I ain't going to let them win shit. They ain't going to win nothing, and I'll go back. I remember being home a couple weeks ago, and I think I was playing Guess Who with my little niece, and I beat her, and I was like, and she started crying. I was like, shh. I was like, come on. Like, I'm not going to let you win. She was on a streak of 5 probably because everybody was letting her win. I didn't let her win. I ain't about that life.
And then Girtz concussed her after that. So what else do you find joy in besides that then? So let's say take out competition. What do you find joy in your daily life in doing?
It's no secret. My dog, like animals. I mean, but my dog is a big part of that. I'm a big animal person, all types of animals. One day I hope to have freaking a little ranch with tons of animals. You know, I've just always been attached to animals my whole life.
What is it about the animals that you think?
The purity, you know, like they show you what they mean. You know, they're not gonna fake nothing. They're not faking that they want to be around you. They don't fake shit. You know, they're just pure in the love that they have. It's all real. Yeah. And I've always had that connection. Growing up, I'm not saying I lived in the country really, but we lived a little out of town. We, you know, have 7 acres. My neighbors have horses. We got, all of a sudden, I mean, there was a time I think we had 20 cats around because the outside cats would just be, all of a sudden there's freaking 4 different batches, and you know, I just be laying. I can just feel the pure joy of laying around and having kittens just walking all around me and just playing with them. Like, there's just, it's real joy to me, like, because it's the real love, and they're pure. You know, animals are pure. You can see it in their eyes. If they don't want to fucking hang out with you, you can see that. You know, like an animal will tell you, like, get the fuck away from me, just by looking at them. You like, you know, you can feel it. You get the fuck away from them. You know, like, I ain't cool with you, and they're real. So
I'm having a similar experience now with my son. My son is 2 years old, and there's a joy I get in just how unfiltered he is about everything. Like, I'll walk over and he'll be playing with his garbage truck, and I'll just go over and start going, hey, let me play with your garbage truck with you. And he'll just go, Daddy, go away. And I'm like, man, that is just so cool that he doesn't think like, oh, maybe I'll hurt Daddy's feelings like that. And I was like, and I think the quest as we get older is to try to get back to that, where we're just living in the moment and saying, just, Daddy, go away. And then he comes over to me and just gives me a hug, but the hug means so much because he's not doing anything in any manipulative way. And
it's all real.
It's all real.
It's pure.
Yeah.
You know, and there's something about that, especially in the world we live now. You know, you see a lot of fakeness, not to say, but, you know, you talk about people talking shit and fighting, and it's a lot of it's fake, and it's annoying. You know, like, I like shit to be real. I don't try to hide how competitive I am or how intense I am, you know, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to dim that down or you don't like that, then I'm not going to be hanging around you, you know, because that's just who I am, you know. Like, I'm going to be real with who I am at all times. Otherwise, if you're trying to be fake, you're trying to do that, that will eat away at you, you know, and that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, you seem like you've gotten to a real comfortable place in your life. It's a cool place to be. At least it seems like you're just satisfied within, because you know who you are, and you know what to go after now. So I think that's kind of the struggle of most people, to find what makes them happy. Yeah.
And I'm definitely not someone that knows it all or has it all yet, you know. But I've been building at it my whole life, because there was times that I wasn't comfortable with that, you know. There was times, you know, I wasn't, and I've been building on. Am I there yet? Heck no, you know. But I feel like I keep getting better at it, you know, and I've learned how to deal with those things and just to enjoy the life, you know?
Yeah. I've noticed that with a lot of fighters, Corey, so far. The comedians tend to be the nuttier ones. We interview one comedian a week and one fighter a week, and the fighters always seem much more well put together mentally to me than the comedians. Have you noticed that? I do.
I haven't noticed that. What I have noticed is how likable all of the comedians are.
Because that's what we do. That's our charm.
But these are all of our. I mean, this is my culture, fighting. So I don't know that I would even notice something like that. But I do notice the difference in comedians versus fighters, as far as comedians being just like, everyone we meet, dude, is so likable.
Yeah,
I'm just like, man, I would hang out with this person all day. With Girtz, I would never hang out with Girtz all day.
I like Girtz.
Unless we're playing spike ball.
Yeah, unless I'm whooping his ass at spike ball.
Ah, shit.
Would you text me back, Girtz? Because it takes him a week to text back anything to me. I've asked him 500 questions, and I'm like, I don't think we're doing the podcast anymore. And then all of a sudden, he's like, all right, I'll meet you at Girtz's. And I'm like, oh, shit, he texted me back.
I haven't heard back from you.
Yeah. Whereas I need to text back. See, and the way my mind works is soon as someone texts me, my mind immediately goes to how can I make that funny? Like, I always do that. Like, it's funny how my mind works like that. And it's funny, that's what our job is to be charming. Like, I learned long ago I was never going to be able to fight, so there had to be a way to get girls, except for Corey, I think that's why most of us do anything. Corey doesn't seem to be a normal human being. He doesn't have, he's just really content.
I don't want anything.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't have any.
You don't do it for girls. Did you do it for girls in the beginning, Brandon? I mean, come on, we are kind of all. That's why.
In the beginning's different, though. In the beginnings, I didn't. I mean, everyone's a head case at some point.
But what I'm saying is, like, I knew I had to become charming because I could not fight.
Yeah.
So I couldn't be the tough guy. So I learned that if I could make the girls laugh, that's what I was able to do.
That was be natural, you know. That's basically that was your natural thing, being funny, you know.
Yeah.
Like, not that you had to do that, but like you didn't have the desire to fight. Maybe it was because you said you weren't a fighter, but that you did your natural thing, you know, is be funny, you know. And that's just people need to be natural, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well. I could ask you 10 more questions. We got to wrap this up, but I just want to ask you. You've been in title fights, right?
I have never fought for a title. Not even at the local scene. Nothing. I've never fought for a title, which is just crazy. I've been close, and then obviously something happens, you know, where they're like, if you win this fight, your next one will be for a title, and then obviously it didn't go that way. So I've I had no local belts. I had nothing, you know. When I started, It was never had a belt. Never fought for a belt. No.
And is that something that's important to you, or do you think that's going to bother you one day, or do you think you're still going to get a belt, or is that the goal, to keep getting to that belt? I mean,
I definitely want to fight for a belt. Absolutely, I want a belt on the line. But when I first started fighting, it wasn't a belts. I just was telling my buddy the other day, it was never about being the best fighter in the world. Like that shit never really went through my mind. I did it because that was it's so natural.
Yeah.
It was a natural progression, and like I said, I've always fought. And then, you can get paid to fight. Sign me up. You know, that's basically what it was. Like, it's just a natural thing. Like, being a fighter, I mean, if we want to go back 1,000 years, I would have been on the freaking front lines, freaking cutting people's heads off, and I would have enjoyed it. I probably would have I would have probably lived a better life back then. You know, like, that would have been so much simpler for me. You battle, you go battle, this, that, like, and that's all that matters. Like, that would have probably been my life. Like, and I would have enjoyed it. It would have been simpler, you know. Nowadays, I can't just go and, you're fucking with me, I can't just beat your ass, you know. Like, I wish it was like that, you know. We've gone away from that. I can't just punch anybody in the streets.
Yeah.
I get why, but like, You know, it's just a natural thing.
You're a guy I really want to make sure is my friend. Just so you know that, like, I've made that choice that I never want to be your enemy because I know that, like, you'll just want to hit me if I do something to piss you off. So I always think this. Corey, have you ever had you've never had a belt either, right?
No, I've had a few.
You have had a few? Mm-hmm. Look at you just
locally, though.
bragging right in front of Girtz.
I haven't had, like, well, I suppose as an amateur, I won a national kickboxing championship and then a world championship as an amateur, too. But I didn't win anything that, like, I didn't really give a shit. Well, I guess I suppose I cared a little bit, but I didn't. What's important to me is winning, like, a world championship, and I haven't won, like, a world championship as a professional, only as an amateur.
Yeah, but that is important to you.
It's important, but not as important as being able to do this every single day.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, just remember this, Brandon. If you were living back in those years, like you said, were you able to do that? There were no bidets. You'd have just a dirty asshole. You'd be so miserable that you just would not be a happy person.
The norm.
So.
I mean, I lived without a bidet for a few years. I was doing all right. That's just now it's life.
So where can we tell our fans to come see you or come, like, join your Instagram and stuff? This is the part of the podcast me and Corey are trying to get better at, which is promoting people because we're not good at it. So do you have a website? Do you have a should we just tell people to come visit you here?
Yeah, at the house. I barely leave here, so that's that's why it was perfect when you say come here. I'm like, Corey knows me. I don't leave the house much, but no, you can on the social networks. There's Brandon Girtz MMA. That's on all my networks.
Yeah, cool. All right, so it's at Brandon Girtz.
Yep, at Brandon Girtz MMA.
Awesome. You want to wrap this up, Corey?
Nice job, Brandon.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Fatal. All right, I'm going to go use that bidet now.
Podcast.